This video is going to focus on 3 songs, the first being Little Bird. All 3 songs are produced by my favorite artist, Jon Bellion, but more so they'll be associated with the Jonas Brothers as they're the ones who perform it. Let's tune into the first line.
Came in the world, my baby girl, beautiful angel.
Now this song is quite efficient. Already in the first line we get the premise. There's no room for instrumental solos. Instead, what we get are little bite-sized motifs like this one that have been intricately placed. Instruments have their exact place, lyrics too. Also, we can come to the emotional crescendo at the chorus.
Small hands, wrapped around my finger, wrapped around my finger. And we dance, trying to let it linger, trying to let it linger.
Just as a baby's hands would grip a parent's fingers, Nick anticipates the first dance at his daughter's wedding to be equal parts heartwarming and heart-wrenching. The two are intimate, vulnerable moments, but this song calls to question who's more exposed here, child or parent. We get further confirmation of this as the second verse kicks in. This time, Joe chimes in.
Walk down the aisle, breaking my heart, lay down my pride. I know I gotta let you go.
Now it does go with mentioning that, as of recording this, Joe and Sophie are officially parting ways. If we reflect these lyrics back on the nature of their divorce, a song that looks ahead to their daughter's marriages coming from a man who was unable to tend to his own marriage, it doesn't necessarily portray Joe in the best light. We are well within our rights to call to question the integrity of the artist. In fact, it's a very important thing to do. But that doesn't mean that this jeopardizes the integrity of the song.
'Cause I know if I'm doing my job correct, nights like these will happen less. Please just keep me in your heart when you fly into somebody else's arms. Little bird.
And if anything, this places us as listeners in a position to empathize with those whose parents have gotten divorced, if even in the smallest sense, as we too are trying to reconcile the good and the bad, love and hate, celebration and grief. And perhaps, when you juxtapose things that are to be celebrated with things that are to be grieved, the joy-filled moment becomes that much more precious. Therein, it is precisely those who have experienced great pain, even if the pain is brought about by their own hand, who are best poised to contextualize and cherish great joy.
Celebrate tonight. Let the party die. Celebrate tonight.
In keeping with the theme of weddings, Celebrate is another attempt to unpack emotions on the dance floor, albeit in a completely different way than Little Bird.
Through the fire we made it. Look at us now.
Beyond the change in tenor, the lyrics arrive at emotions in an entirely different way. Whereas in Little Bird, the song is emotional because it's reflective. This song is more indicative. It's instructive. It's almost as if Little Bird is trying to spark an emotion, and Celebrate is merely fanning the flame. It's a very physical song, and I mean that in its most literal sense. Take note of how direct some of these lyrics are.
You better hit the right and hit the left now. Turn around and slide. We made it through all of the years and all of the tears. We've made the move. Me and you, we're gonna one step, two step.
I love how the Joe Bros create the unlikeliest of dance partners, pairing the idea of overcoming difficulty with the idea of physical movement.
Celebrate with me tonight. Celebrate while we've got time.
It's a real exclamation of a song. Very simple premise. The songs on the album have been distilled to their most elegant form. In this case, the directive is to celebrate. That's it. Just celebrate. In this way, a song like Celebrate is short form proper. Not in the optimizing for TikTok sense, but in the condensing and simplifying of an idea sense. The Beatles are actually a wonderful comp for this iteration of the Jonas Brothers. Not because they are both boy bands, that's actually a low-hanging fruit that I'm particularly uninterested in picking, More so because the Beatles were masters of the radio edit, of distilling ideas down to the minimum viable product. Because of this, I like to think of Celebrate as a modern twist and shout. Packing this idea up, let's move on to our final song, Summer in the Hamptons.
Warm waterfalls, step on and on me. Your body takes me to some kind of place. Sex like summer in the Hamptons.
If we're continuing our 3-song arc, Little Bird, Celebrate, and Summer in the Hamptons trace the shape of a wedding. The first dance, the reception, and finally, the honeymoon. Summer in the Hamptons is about sex, but it's never crude.
I'm deep inside your set, a different kind of warmness. My heart inside your hands, 1,000 wild horses. Sex like summer in the Hamptons.
If Celebrate is literal and immediate, then I like how metaphoric Summer in the Hamptons is trying to be. Now in America, we find ourselves at two extremes. On one end, we tend to get squeamish when talking about sex. But simultaneously, most songs in pop culture reference sex in explicitly erotic ways. And this song certainly arrives at its own eroticism, but I'd argue that despite it being about sex, the song is actually relationship forward. There's a real deficit in the way we talk about sex. By detaching it from marriage, we devalue the idea of sex. But beautiful lines like the ones on display in this song frame the unadulterated beauty of sex and what it can mean for a marriage.
Sex like summer in the Hamptons. Sex like summer in the Hamptons.